So, all right, hello once again to all of our listeners out there in points throughout the Cotton Belt, from California to the Carolinas. We are back with this, the 23rd episode, the Michael Jordan episode of the world famous Cotton Companion podcast. My name is Beck Barnes, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Cotton Grower Magazine's senior editor, Mr. Jim Steadman. Jim, hello.
How you doing, Beck? You can tell that we're working the southern markets if you're talking about the 23rd episode as the Michael Jordan episode, as opposed to our friends and our corporate partners up in Ohio who look at it as the LeBron James episode.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I didn't even think of that. Our publishing corporate offices. They're not terribly corporate, though. It's about 120 folks. I consider it pretty mom and pop up there. Great company, Meister Media, is located in Cleveland, Ohio. So, yes, they would. As soon as our sound engineer hears this, he's going to shoot me a note to say it's the LeBron James episode. Anyhow.
That's why I was really trying to cover you on that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jim. A good teammate, as always. So, today is Friday, September 16. And as far as our industry goes, man, this has been a newsy week, about as news-packed as you could possibly have. You all out there around the Cotton Belt have likely already heard, but Bayer and Monsanto formalized their long-rumored merger or buyout. We'll get into that here in a bit. They finally formalized and went through with that thing earlier this week. I believe it was Wednesday that happened, Thursday morning.
The days are running together so quickly on this. I believe it was finally announced Tuesday morning.
There you go. So anyhow, as I say, we'll get into that here in a bit. For our purposes, obviously, in the cotton market, what you have now are what have traditionally been three of the biggest, if not the three biggest seed brands in the country year to year. Of course, Phytogen has been somewhere in that top three, depending on the year, over the past, decade or if not more. So anyhow, you have three of the biggest seed brands in America have now all come under the same corporate umbrella. So the mind reels as far as the possibilities of what's going to happen with these three brands. So I don't want to get too deep into that right now. We are going to do a deep dive into that later in this episode. We also had, in a totally or somewhat related development, the USDA cotton varieties planted report dropped for 2016. That came to us on Wednesday, and so we want to dig into that. It's a report that I look forward to each year because it is as revealing as can possibly be in terms of what you guys, dear listeners, are up to out there, what you value in a cotton seed, what agronomic issues are the most important to you. It's very interesting for us. And so we want to get into that a little bit and sort of pick your brains as far as what you planted out there. Other things have happened. WASDE report, normally something that we would peg our podcast to, also came out this week. It's like number 3 on our news bullet points this week. And also we had a crop progress report come out, so Jim's going to talk a little bit about that and how the cotton crop is progressing out there across the Cotton Belt at this point in mid-September. So, as you can see, we've got a packed show, a great show lined up for you today. We are going to begin, like always, with Jim leading us into discussion of these latest breaking cotton headlines. In fact, that is really going to be the meat and potatoes of this show today. We're just going to explore all of these topics in depth to make sure you are as knowledgeable as can be when you get done listening to today's Cotton Companion podcast. There's so much going on that I'm not even going to mention my existential dread about tomorrow's Ole Miss versus Alabama football game.
I wondered how long it was going to take you to bring that up.
Yeah. Well, by the time y'all are listening, it will be done and dusted, and I will probably be in a sour mood at the beginning of next week when y'all are listening to this as an Ole Miss fan. But for now, we're not even going to get into it. We just want you to hang around through this quick break. And when we get back, we will be diving into all of these topics. So hang out and we'll be right back.
Cotton Grower magazine has the honor of saluting exceptional sacrifice and contribution to the cotton industry through our annual Cotton Grower Cotton Achievement Award. Since 1970, Cotton Grower has handed out this distinguished honor to one individual who demonstrates tireless dedication to the cotton industry through involvement, innovation, and leadership in those issues that have a large impact on U.S. cotton as a whole. Achievement Award winners are chosen after extensive research and thoughtful input from around the industry. Cotton Grower offers sincere gratitude to Case IH and to Delta Pine for sponsoring the Cotton Grower Cotton Achievement Award. In joining the effort to recognize and honor industry leaders, these companies demonstrate their devotion to the cotton industry and their desire to see growers succeed.
Well, welcome back, dear listeners. As Beck said, we're going to jump into the newsy items of the week, and boy, do we have some good ones to spend some time on. Let's get the basic reports out of the way first. Looking at the USDA Crop Progress Report, and this would be as of dated September 11th. So certainly there have been some changes but in the crop situation between now and then, and of course we'll see those numbers on coming up next week. But for cotton, the bolls opening, so basically the percentage of the cotton crop that has open bolls in it at this point as of September 11th was looking at 41% nationwide. There are 7 states right now, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, and several others that are actually running ahead of their 5-year average. That's the one thing we keep hearing from people in the market right now, out in the cotton specialists and other folks, is that this crop is coming on fast. It's probably about 2 weeks ahead of schedule, which has some folks, I think, scrambling right now to do some final insect control if they need to, and start looking at their harvest plans. Speaking of harvest, this is the first week that we've seen a cotton harvested report as part of the crop progress. As you can imagine, right now we're looking at maybe 4% of the crop that has actually made its way out of the field. Arizona and Texas surprisingly lead the way there. Texas primarily in that South Texas area, where we understand we're hearing reports of some really, really good, impressive yields off of some dryland acres down there. So we'll keep our eye on that number. We expect it to start rising rapidly because there are a lot of reports out there now of fields that have been defoliated or fields that are going to be defoliated within the next week across the southeast and the mid-south. Because again, as we said, the crop is running fast and running ahead of schedule.
Yeah, it makes me think of that. Was it just last year we ran that defoliation report in the September issue and got just a handful of emails from guys in South Texas like, appreciate this. We're
done.
We're put away.
Yeah, we're finished for the year.
Appreciate these defoliation tips in your September issue. But
it's never an exact science, folks, and this is the one thing about the media is we try to work ahead, but we can't predict crop conditions and things like that.
Yeah,
so
tailor that magazine specifically for
absolutely not. But we have certainly learned to give South Texas its due.
No doubt.
Absolutely. Well, to finish out the crop progress part, our cotton conditions for the week ending September 11th, we were looking at really and truly the crop's still in great shape. 47% are rated good or excellent. 37% fall into the fair category, and only 16% into that poor, very poor category. Some of that is weather related in a lot of areas that have had too much rain. Some of it is disease related, which again ties back to to the weather. But all in all, I think the crop's in good shape. You talk to cotton specialists and other folks across the belt; they're very pleased with how this crop is turning out at this point. Moving on to the September World Agriculture Supply and Demand Estimates report that was released by USDA on Tuesday of this week. Basically, it was a report that was met with sort of a general shrug by the industry, by the folks in the industry. For September, The estimates included larger production and ending stocks relative to where they were in August. Production was raised in the U.S. 263,000 bales, and beginning stocks were revised 100,000 bales lower based on what the report said at the end of July. Domestic mill use down slightly, but other than that, export forecast was unchanged. World cotton production was mostly offset by lower beginning stocks, so world ending stocks were raised very, very slightly. Global consumption virtually unchanged. Trade revised down marginally, with world ending stocks projected at 89.8 million bales. As you can imagine, again, anytime a report comes out, the first thing we look at is what's the price, what did it do to the price? And in this case, and I'm quoting Dr. Don Shirley, who does a very nice monthly analysis of the report out of the University of Georgia, basically saying whatever the market was expecting, it didn't get from this report. So prices reacted accordingly and went down. They were right around the 69-cent area prior to the report, but as soon as the report came out, prices dropped 2 cents. So as Don says, it's probably safe to assume the market didn't like the new numbers. So prices this week have ranged between 66.5 cents and 68 cents, but again, still down about 1.5 cents prior to the report. And before walking in here this morning to record, I checked the market prices. They again have been falling in that very steady, not moving category. But today's price for October 2016, cotton is 67.7. For December, 67.04. And for March of 2017, the price is 67.3. So again, we're sort of back into a holding pattern of sorts when it comes to prices. I think there is some reason for still optimism out there, with some possible weather impact on the U.S. crop. There's definitely been some impact on crops in other countries. There's some trade opportunities that may be possible. So there's still some folks that think we will see a bump back up to the high 60s. Maybe not quite to 70, but we'll see how conditions go. Things always change when it comes time to get the crop out of the field. The next item was the cotton varieties planted report that was issued on September 14th. And going through this, as Beck said earlier, we always like to take some time and sit down and kind of examine this report as closely as we can, because it does give us an idea of where the technologies are on a regional basis, and certainly how our seed companies are doing from a competitive perspective as well. This year, again, Delta Pine was the most popular brand of upland cotton planted in the U.S. But the surprise came in Americot and NextGen. Their NextGen brands were the second most popular varieties planted this year. Coming in third or finishing third in this was Bayer's FiberMax brand. Phytogen ranked fourth. Bayer's Stoneville brand ranked fifth. And the Altex Dynagrow varieties ranked sixth. The surprising part in this is, for the last couple of years, either a Phytogen variety or a Delta Pine variety have topped the charts in terms of the most popular variety planted in the U.S. This year, it was Americot's NG 3406 B2XF.
We should say the first time that we deviated off of that Delta Pine or Phytogen variety was actually last year. Stoneville's 4946 was number one in 2015. Don't want to shortchange our friends over at Stoneville, but you're right. It was such a curveball to see NextGen's 3406 B2XF come in as the coast-to-coast leader. I mean, you could. We just started looking at this thing close. What was it, yesterday around lunchtime, Jim?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it snapped up about 17% of that Southwest market, which, as you all know, is the largest region in the. I mean, over half the acres in the country are grown Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, New Mexico. So to get 17% of that market is a big get. But they also had about 12% of the acreage in the Delta region too. So, those guys out at Americott, Terry Campbell, the GM, general manager out there, have been, telling me for years. He says, "Man, we're trying to get on those Delta acres. We're trying to get on those Southeast acres. We're making a push. We're doing the research. We're doing the marketing." They have their own breeding program there at Americott, and dang if they didn't come through in a big way here in 2016.
So it was, it was certainly a surprise, and a pleasant surprise from that perspective. When you look at the overall, Delta pine varieties are sitting this year on 32.6% of the whole entire U.S. acreage. Obviously, then you got strong numbers regionally from each of these companies. The Americott Next Gen overall was 22.5% of this year's acreage. FiberMax was on 16.2% of the U.S. acres. Phytogen on 12.9%. Bayer Stoneville on 8.8%, and the Altex Dynagrow on 6%. Now, one other thing I want to circle back around to Phytogen on is Phytogen is the primary choice for those Pima cotton acres that are out there. They have 3 varieties that topped the Pima chart, and when you add those 3 together, add those 3 plus a few other varieties that they have on the Pima chart, those Phytogen varieties account for almost 73% of all the Pima acreage. So they've always been strong in that market. They continue to dominate that market, and apparently have several good varieties out there that are performing well for growers at this point. The one other thing that the report always tells us every year is the amount or the percentage of varieties that fall in, that are transgenic varieties, either have an insect control trait or a weed control trait or both in with the seed. This year, those varieties account for 98.7% of all upland cotton planted in the U.S. The rest obviously would fall into non-transgenic or organic cottons at this point. So that's kind of the report for this year. It's good to see some change and some shift. I think the one thing that jumped out at us as we were looking through this is the technologies that are involved in these, and it's become clear at this point, while we're still in a waiting mode for finalization on some of the approvals of products, that the Monsanto XtendFlex, Bollgard 2 XtendFlex technology performed very, very well, as did Phytogen's Wide Strike Roundup Flex varieties. So I know there's some folks out there waiting for the Enlist technology, and we know Phytogen has some Enlist varieties out there this year on a limited basis. We'll be following that, and it'll always be interesting to see this time next year when that report pops up to see what kind of changes we do see. Yeah,
no doubt those guys, if this sort of unprecedented, like a rocket shot of Americott up the market share chart here, which was a horribly mixed metaphor that I just threw together there, mashed together. Americott's rise is no doubt hooked to that XtendFlex technology that many of their varieties boasts. The next gen rise, Americott's next gen varieties boast. Clearly, those guys out in the Southwest wanted to get their hands on that on that trait package, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people in this country who are really relieved when that when and if that USDA regulatory green light comes down the pipe, hopefully sooner than later. Ditto for the Enlist varieties, obviously.
Well, it's definitely an indication that weed control is becoming a primary driver in the variety selections, and with this technology, and certainly with the Enlist technology, and the same thing with the Bayer technologies, and Phytogen, all of them right now are multiple herbicide technologies with both glyphosate and glufosinate. We're just waiting on the approvals for the new dicamba and 2,4-D formulations to go, and hopefully, from all indications, in talking with a few folks over the last few weeks, it looks like the end of November is the date that is circled in red at this point for all of this to clear EPA. So keep your fingers crossed that we have some good news at that point, preferably before.
Yeah, no doubt. And trust us when we say the editors of Cotton Grower Magazine have our fingers crossed for those two technologies too.
Absolutely. And then we get to the big deal of the week, and I
literally,
yeah, literally, not even figuratively, literally, at this point. As we've gone through this year's, really and truly, I guess since late last year, when the first merger, or when the intended merger of Dow and DuPont was announced, the market has just kind of have seen its share of rumors and other moves in terms of growing because of the situation in the current situation in the ag market, looking to enhance their company's offerings, looking to improve their bottom lines, looking for ways to operate more efficiently and provide services to growers. Obviously, we've had the Dow-DuPont merger, and that seems to be moving along relatively smoothly at this point. Obviously, though, there are some regulatory folks looking at it, both in the U.S. and abroad. You have the ChemChina acquisition of Syngenta that is still in the works. The companies there are also very confident that all of that's going to square away. And then suddenly here within the last couple of weeks, there's just been this rash of possibilities. We've got fertilizer companies, Potash Corporation and Agrium, getting ready to merge. And then on the heels of that discussion comes the news this week that Bayer and Monsanto have reached an agreement for Bayer's acquisition of Monsanto. Couple of things, just the facts, I guess, behind this. The deal is basically valued at $66 billion with a B dollars. It's $128 per share. It's going to be an all-cash transaction based on Monsanto's closing share price back on May 9th, which was the day before Bayer's first written proposal to Monsanto. So this offer basically is a 44% premium to Monsanto shareholders over what that price was on May 9th. The combined business is going to benefit from Monsanto's leadership in seeds and traits and the Climate Corporation platform that they have for precision ag, along with Bayer's crop protection product line across a whole range of crops and geography. So again, we're really recreating a true global business here from a seed and chemical perspective. You're going to be able to have both companies' innovation capabilities and R&D technology platforms. It's becoming increasingly expensive for single companies to spend a lot of time and dollars on R&D simply because of the cost factors involved in it. There was a note, and Beck will. Those of you listening to this can't see the pile of paper I have here in my hand, based on things that have been said and written about this deal over the last 2 days. But basically, there was some speculation and discussion that the R&D budget alone for this combined company would be somewhere in the $3 billion range in terms of looking at new technologies and new products that would help, that they could bring to the market hand in hand. There is a contingency plan in place because obviously when you have a deal this big, there's always a possibility that it will not go through. And there are a lot of investment people out there who are saying this has a 50 to 70% chance of actually finalizing. If it doesn't go through, Bayer is going to pay a $2 billion breakup fee back to Monsanto if the deal just doesn't get approved.
I didn't know about that breakup fee. Bloomberg had an interesting story out earlier this week that kind of sort of briefly went through the hurdles that this deal faces. You mentioned it's got a 50% chance of potentially, you put it in a very glass half full way in terms of the deal going through. It's a coin flip whether or not this thing is going to be approved on multiple fronts. They mentioned that it faces conglomerate antitrust issues. In terms of the cotton market, I mean, I think that you have an issue as far as total market share between these two companies with their seeds. I mean, just this year, in terms of acreage market share in 2016, Bayer and Monsanto accounted for about 60% of U.S. acres in total. I don't know if I'm stepping on your toes.
Nope,
if you're going to get to that later, but this is all sort of hooked into what I'm getting at, all these regulatory hurdles. So you're looking at, this one company controlling too much of the market. There are antitrust issues there. You have to worry about price competition if you're a cotton grower. So very similar to when Monsanto took over Delta Pine back in 2007. You may see a couple of these seed brands being spun off. You may not. I would assume that you would.
I think everything that we have seen so far, every comment from folks within the investment industry, people who deal with deals like this on a regular basis, are saying yes, there'll probably have to be something's going to have to give in order to get the necessary approvals through the Justice Department and meet all of the antitrust situations. Again, you mentioned in 2007 when Monsanto bought Delta Pine. At that point, they owned Stoneville.
Yeah. And
had to sell the Stoneville seed unit, and they sold that to Bayer, which Bayer then combined with their existing FiberMax unit. But then they also, Next Gen at that point was a division of Stoneville. And at that point, back in 2007, Americot's the company that stepped up to buy the Next Gen varieties. So it's I think it's interesting to sit back and look at this, because even though there's some other mergers and things in the marketplace, there are also some other companies sitting there who are watching this very, very closely.
Yeah.
That are not part of all of this merger acquisition action right now, but certainly could benefit from if a seed brand becomes available, if a couple of crop protection chemicals become available, if some traits become available through this, that they could be in a position to add those to their product portfolio. And BASF has basically publicly said, we are going to look at everything in this as a possibility if there are any options or opportunities to grow our market. So
BASF a likely suspect in terms
Sure.
of companies you would look at who potentially scoop up a seed brand if it's spun off here. You also look at Syngenta, another huge ag corporation business that currently doesn't have a seed brand. Their CFO is actually on record, a guy named Chief Financial Officer John Ramsey told a reporter in July that they are ready to buy assets divested. If there are assets divested in this merger, including cotton, they are ready and waiting in the wings.
Yep.
But in addition, Jim, I'm straying. All this stuff is related, and we're straying into these speculation about what might happen with any of these three seed brands that are up under the same corporate umbrella now. What I was trying to get at is, in addition to the problems that pop up in terms of antitrust about one company having 60% of total market share in the cotton industry, there's also a U.S. national security review and U.S. Senate hearing underway or in plans at this moment regarding the ongoing wave of ag business consolidation. Earlier this year, Syngenta, who we just mentioned, agreed to be acquired by a group called China National Chemical Corp. And obviously Dow and DuPont agreed to merge earlier this year, something that we covered. So something that the U.S. government's looking at. Too much consolidation, as we all know, could be worrisome to the end product consumer, you guys, people who are trying to buy seed, trying to buy chemical. When you have this much elimination of competition, price competition, it could be detrimental to the industry and to the country as a whole. So that's something that the U.S. government is looking at. I had to shake my head earlier, kind of as an aside here. I didn't realize that Syngenta had been bought up by China National Chemical Corp. It's kind of, I feel like you may be too. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals guy. You? Yeah. And so I've always been a Budweiser guy. Because but the Bush family is very closely associated. I've always thought Bud was that most American of beers, and you find out it got bought up by some company in South America, or
Belgium,
rather South Africa, or was it Belgium or South Africa?
I'm not sure where the ownership rests at this point.
We are not a beer focused magazine. No. But the point being, you just kind of takes a little wind out of the sails.
We're just using it as an example, folks, of course,
of this American staple being bought up by a foreign company. And so Syngenta, which has been so good to American agriculture and will continue to be great to American agriculture, it's just kind of a curveball when you see that it's been bought by a Chinese company.
But it's interesting when you said about the government regulations and the hearings that are going to be held on Capitol Hill about this, and how quickly this has come about. This deal was announced on September 14th, earlier this week. There is a congressional hearing already scheduled on all of these mergers and acquisitions, not just the Bayer-Monsanto, but Dow, DuPont, Chem China, Syngenta, the fertilizer merger that we discussed. All of this is happening in Washington on September 20th, next Tuesday. Now, obviously that will be over with by the time most of you folks hear this podcast, but it gives you an idea of just how concerned the regulators are, how concerned that other folks out in organizations and companies out in the market, folks like National Farm Bureau, National Corn Growers, Soybean Association, things like that, all want to have a say in whether, at least express their opinions on this and the impacts it's going to have on the market. So things in Washington are going to move very, very quickly from that perspective. Then I anticipate things are going to slow down to almost a crawl as you start getting into the Justice Department and other regulatory issues on this. Bloomberg also had a report earlier this week saying that this really adds, this potential agreement adds a new layer of complexity for antitrust officials who are already tied up with some of these other agricultural mergers. And that antitrust reviewers around the globe are going to have to consider not just each deal individually, but now they're going to have to look at how all of these deals combined impact the markets. So it's not just we're going to approve this one. We're looking at just approving this one. We're looking at now the scope of everything and how these combined companies will impact the market on a global basis. It truly is a challenge that they're going to have at this point to make it all come together or make sense of it.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't want to put, Jim and I are just sort of reflecting a lot of the reports we read this week. I don't want to, obviously our first concern is to make sure our listeners get a fair shake when deals like this happen. We want to make sure, things are priced reasonably for the American cotton producer so that you all can be as profitable in your work as feasible. The other thing for me personally, I come from Leland, Mississippi. My mother has worked at Delta Pine for a long time. I know a lot of the people there. I'm sure that there are people in that, a lot of people on both sides, Bayer and Monsanto, who we know well, are great people, and they want this merger to go. Some folks want this merger to go through, So, I don't want us to sit here and go, well, it looks like it's going to be 50%. It's probably not going to happen. It's got to jump these regulatory hurdles, these DC hurdles. Ultimately, if they merge, it could work out best for all. We don't want to put a negative spin on this merger were it to go through. We hope it works out best for all involved.
I think it's, as those of us who've been around this industry and just say the ag industry in general, for any number of years, the one constant in all of this is change. We can't go back. I think when I first started getting involved in this market back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was 4 bushel baskets full of different companies out there with their chemical products or their seed. And obviously, over the years, those numbers have whittled down to to where we are today, looking at some very, very large corporations that have been successful on their own, now looking to merge into something even bigger. It's certainly going to be a challenge. And right now, DowDuPont, from what we understand, their plans were to have their deal closed by the end of this year. The Bayer-Monsanto combination are looking at having things squared away by the end of 2017. And that's going to be a monumental challenge. As we said, the ChemChina-Syngenta deal continues to move, pretty much on pace at this point. But it will be interesting to see now with the volume of activity going on, how the whole approval process and review process, if it slows down just a little bit more than everyone originally anticipated.
Yeah, you're talking timelines there. I was actually just looking this up on my podcast app on my iPhone. I was trying to go back and find the episode where we first mentioned this merger, and it was May 26th. We had our actually wasn't that episode 18. Another potential merger pops up. So what really wasn't that? It feels like we've been talking about it longer than that, doesn't it?
This one has actually moved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
There were a lot of start and stops, and people at one company asking for this and another asking for that, and
yeah,
it was a very interesting negotiation process to kind of sit back and watch.
Yeah. May 26th, Cotton Grower editors Jim Steadman and Beck Barnes discuss the potential Bayer and Monsanto merger as details begin to emerge.
Right. And you can go back even further to to our first initial discussions about DowDuPont, which would have been late last year, early this year, and I believe in one of our March editions, actually had an interview with Tim Glenn from DuPont, talking about the structure and how things were going and all of that. So it's been something that obviously has been on our radar pretty much for almost for a year now.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely something we will continue to keep an eye on. I don't want to step on your toes. I don't know if you were wrapping up there.
Nope. I have nothing else to say, because again, it's going to be something that we'll all just sort of have to sit back and watch. We'll see what comes out of the congressional hearing next week, what sort of information and what sort of feelings we see from throughout the rest of the industry. For those of us who are focused on cotton, obviously it has the potential to shift our market a little bit, even if we're just taking pieces and moving them around. That wouldn't be the first time that's happened in this segment.
Yeah, and that's an important point to make. I mean, this isn't the first time. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We have seen these big companies merge and buy up seed brands, and that seed brand gets spun off and bought by another player who you're familiar with, and the world keeps spinning, and you keep producing a good crop each year. So, not time to flip out. Just time to kind of keep an eye on things at this point.
Exactly.
Well, if that's all you got, Jim, we can hold up right there. We're going to take a quick break, quick musical interlude, and we'll come back and get you out of here very soon. So stick with us. So all right, that will just about do it for this installment of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to thank you sincerely for joining us once again. If you like what you're hearing, by all means, tell your farmer buddies about this podcast. When doing so, you could tell them they can reach us. They can find us in 3 easy ways. The first of which is to go to cottongrower.com, find the search bar at the top of the page, and just search for the Cotton Companion there. Should take you to a landing page where all 23 now of our podcasts are hosted. The second way, another good way to find us, just go to your iTunes app on your Apple device and search for our channel there. It's the Cotton Companion channel. Once you do that, you find us, you can subscribe, and that way every new episode of the Cotton Companion podcast gets downloaded automatically to your podcast stream there on your phone. I suspect a lot of you guys are already doing this, those of you who spend long hours in the cab of a tractor. Y'all are more technologically tuned in than people give you credit for. I know y'all know how to operate your iPhones. Search for us in your iTunes app, and you won't regret it. The third way, the best way to make sure you catch every episode of the Cotton Companion podcast is to subscribe to our weekly Cotton Grower e-newsletter. Jim works hard to pack that thing with all of the relevant news of the day. Each week, they hit your email inbox every Tuesday morning. Occasionally, they will do so on Thursday mornings as well. And you can get the Cotton Grower e-newsletter by going to www.cottongrower.com. You scroll to the bottom of the page there, and you will find a link that says subscribe. Once you click on that thing, it'll allow you to subscribe to our e-newsletter. We just need your email address, and you won't regret it. Finally, make sure you are following us on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook you can find us by simply searching for Cotton Grower Magazine. We hope you are enjoying our latest issue. That's the September issue. It would have just recently hit your mailboxes now. And the next one we'll have to you is October. October Product Guide, big tabloid size thing. You can't miss it. It should be in your mailboxes here in about maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month.
Yeah, mid to late October.
There you go, mid to late October. So this podcast is produced by Mr. Marcus Antonelli. He works at the mothership, Meister Media Worldwide, in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. My name is Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in 2 weeks for the next episode of the Cotton Companion. For now, on behalf of my own Cotton Companion, Jim Steadman, we wish you and your farm all the best.